Hi, everybody. This is Tammy Worrell, and welcome to our webinar for tonight. And this is Mandy. She is my trusty assistant. Most of you guys know who she is, and my soon-to-be daughter-in-law. So it's fun. I get to cook with her in my kitchen today. So welcome to my home. We are going to be talking about going gluten-free. And this is not for you hardcore celiac patients. This is strictly going to be a lifestyle change. This is going to be all about learning the things that have gluten in them, learning to adapt your lifestyle to a non-gluten lifestyle, which is going to have so many benefits. For those of you who are new to our webinar, I just wanted to welcome you. I am the lead provider at Piedmont Wellness Center, and we are located in Greensboro on 6 North Point Court, which is right off of Elm Street in our brand new facility. And hopefully most of you have been able to visit. If you haven't, you've got a treat ahead of you because it's just a beautiful location. We've even got a running river going through the middle of our building. So come and see us. We've got a walking trail, so if you come, bring your shoes and enjoy us. Just have a picnic. This webinar is based upon this book called The Wheat Belly. And it's one of my favorite books. It's written by a Dr. William Davis, who is a cardiologist. And this has been one of the most successful books about health to come on the market. And if you hear that in the background, Mandy is starting the meal while I while I talk to you guys about gluten. We're going to be making shrimp and grits. And the grits are cheesy grits with goat cheese in them. And it has sort of a Louisiana Cajun feel to it, but it's all gluten-free. So everything that you're going to see that we're preparing or we have prepared is gluten-free. And so our menu is going to be salad with cranberries and sliced almonds and feta cheese. And it's a mixed greens with an Italian vinaigrette. And we're going to have cheese blintzes, which are these little rolls. Speaking of which, I need to turn my oven on. So okay, so oven is on, and we've got the rolls already in there. And then for dessert, we're going to have gluten-free cupcakes, gluten-free brownies. So I've got lots of things to talk about, and let's get started. The first thing I want to say is I want to read a quote by Dr. Davis, and it's a very profound quote. And at first I thought, that's a pretty strong statement to be attributing most of our health problems to the wheat. Our consumption of wheat. But when you read the book and when you fully understand what our hybridized wheat is doing to our body, you'll agree, and I fully agree with this. And this is the quote. This is why I often say that the healthcare is, to a large degree, nothing more than the system we've created to treat the consequences of wheat and grain consumption. The diseases we have come to call the diseases of civilization that are not shared by people and cultures who have not made the error of consuming the seeds of grasses. So any grains that we consume are basically the seeds of grasses, and we as human beings are not designed to process those, especially in today's world. This book is a guide to really more or less explaining why gluten is such a problem. It has a few recipes in it, but for the beginner, I think it's essential for you to understand that. So we're going to sort of summarize that tonight. And I'm just going to quickly mention to Mandy, if you need me, you just let me know. But I'm putting my trust and faith in her. She's over there. What we're doing is we're cooking the grits, and they are quick cooking grits that are gluten-free. We are going to cook them with 2 cups of milk, some whole butter, and also some whole whipping cream. So this is definitely not a light menu. It is a very rich menu, but I wanted to do that on purpose so that we can demonstrate you don't have to sacrifice to be gluten-free. You can eat some really incredibly wonderful dishes. The grits are going to cook quickly, and she has the shrimp in the frying pan, sauteing those with some fresh chopped garlic. We're going to add some Himalayan sea salt, along with some sliced red bell peppers that are organic. And let's see what else is going to be in there. We're also going to add about a half a cup of a dry white wine. And as soon as that is finished, we will plate that and show you the finished product. So I must apologize. I have had laryngitis for 2.5 weeks, so you'll have to put up with my my little bit of a squeaky voice. Okay, let's talk about the grains that contain gluten. The sources of gluten are wheat, barley, and rye. All of the other grains have to some degree a gluten component, but for the most part, the ones that we need to be worried about are wheat, barley, and rye. The other grains that do not contain gluten to speak of are corn, rice, quinoa, amaranth, millet, sorghum, and teff. Big question for a lot of people is wheat genetically modified? And the answer to that technically is no. There has been no gene splicing to the wheat, but that doesn't get them off the hook, and I want you to really understand this. Wheat over the past 50 years has completely changed. It is hybridized, meaning that it has been bred with other forms of plant life. And today it is so unlike anything that compared to the wheat of yesterday. Our wheat way back years ago was very, very tall. And, you know, it's part of our national anthem, the grains and the beautiful fields when we see the national anthem sung of grain. Well, that was the wheat of yesterday. The wheat of today is a dwarf version, and it's a lot shorter. The problem is that it does not contain more gluten. The problem is that the gliadin, that it's a component of the wheat, has been altered, and it's much, much more toxic to the human body. These are some of the symptoms of a gluten sensitivity. And again, I'm not speaking to the community of those that suffer with celiac disease, and those are the ones who have a very serious gluten allergy. And for those patients, eating gluten can cost them their life. They can have such a serious reaction. But I'm speaking to the bulk of the population who really cannot tolerate wheat. And fortunately, some of us tolerate it better than others, but you may be intolerant and just not realize that your symptoms are attributed to that of wheat. So I'm going to go, excuse me, over some of these symptoms. And I want you to listen, because some of this is probably describing you. Do you suffer with IBS? I see a lot of patients with irritable bowel syndrome, dandruff, itchy, scratchy rashes that come and go for no apparent reason. Foggy brain. I bet you if I were to take a survey of my patients, 99% of them would complain to me that they are experiencing brain fog. And that can be due to several reasons, but it may be due to gluten sensitivity. Headaches, very common. Prickly pins and needles feeling. Attention deficit disorder, depression, anxiety, irritability, infertility or trouble conceiving, allergies, which, you know, unfortunately mine are environmental. This all came about as a result of pollen, but I'm more or less talking about food allergies, midsection weight gain. That's why the book is called The Wheat Belly, because you can pretty much pick someone out off the street that has a gluten sensitivity by looking at their midsection. If we were to look at pictures of our relatives from 100 years ago, you're probably not going to find too many of those that have this large round midsection belly. And it's because their wheat was completely different, and they did not consume nearly the numbers of carbs that we consume today. We are essentially killing ourselves with all of the advanced technologies in producing food in our country. And that is evident with all the GMOs, which is a subject for another time and a long debate. Another symptom is edema or puffiness to the skin. If you were to take your thumb and press it on your ankles and press pretty firmly, if that thumbprint stays there to any degree, you're retaining fluid. And that is very much a common symptom with gluten sensitivity. Do you have an autoimmune illness? I see patients every day. Probably 50% of my patients have some form of an autoimmune illness, and that is when the body is essentially attacking itself. So a very common one that I see is Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disorder in which the body is attacking the thyroid as if it is a foreign entity, and gluten can be the source of that. Rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, many other autoimmune illnesses that that we're not even naming, but can be a huge source. That's why with all of my autoimmune patients, one of the first things I tell them is to go gluten-free. Acid reflux. I cannot tell you the stories of patients who have had chronic acid reflux, and I tell them to go on a gluten-free diet, and boom, it's completely gone. So that's a very, very exciting thing for you as a patient. Something so simple, and we're going to simplify this for you tonight, can make such a huge, profound difference. And then let me just tell, maybe when that's done, if you want to, you can, you pull the grits aside and just put the shrimp aside, and then I'll plate it in just 2 minutes. And thank you very much for all your help. Next one is B12 deficiency, which we all know that if you're my patient, a lot of you guys suffer from B12 deficiencies. Malabsorption due to a leaky gut. And leaky gut is a common term these days that people will apply to little micro fissures in the villi of the gut that allows nutrients to escape. And so we become essentially malnourished. I want to give you a little personal story about my journey with a gluten sensitivity. About 3 years ago, I guess, I took a trip to England, and I have known for some time that I have a gluten sensitivity just because of symptoms, and they would always come after eating something with wheat. But I was too stubborn to really make a lifestyle change to any degree. So I just kept on suffering until I finally just got really tired of it and decided, it's not worth it. That one sandwich is not worth a full day of aching joints and being bloated and having just this severe brain fog. So I went gluten-free. I had a theory, though, in the back of my head that a gluten sensitivity is not necessarily related to the actual gluten, but the way that the wheat is produced and hybridized. And I knew in Europe and in England that they didn't allow GMOs as part of their imports. And so when I went to England, I conducted an experiment. And when I got there, I decided to put my gluten-free diet aside and eat anything that I wanted to. So I stayed in this beautiful little sleepy English village where everything was organic. The cows roamed the streets, the chickens ran around, everything was free range and grass-fed, and it was incredible, and the food was wonderful. And the entire week I ate pasta, I ate bread. I would walk every morning to the baker and get fresh bread every morning, and never once had a problem, never had any joint pain, never had any brain fog. So 10 days later, flying back to the US, I get off the plane. I am in the airport at DC, and I thought, this is going to be the test to my gluten sensitivity. So I go up to a vendor and I order something simple. I order a sandwich on white bread. It was just turkey, lettuce, and tomato. Very simple. I'm not allergic to turkey. I'm not allergic to lettuce or tomato. And so I ate the sandwich. Honestly, within about 15 to 20 minutes, I was racked with joint pain from head to toe. I was so fatigued, afraid I was going to fall asleep before my next flight arrived at Greensboro, and just so completely out of it. And I knew then that my theories were more than likely correct, that it's the way that we in the U.S. process our foods that is a big part of the problem. Actually, I think the majority of the problem. In an effort of reaching to find the biggest and the best and the fluffiest and the quickest and the cheapest, we are causing so many problems with our health. Let's talk about reasons to go gluten-free. And I want you to understand a few terms when we go through this. And then I'm going to show you some really cool products that I found just shopping at the grocery store, Lowe's Foods, my neighborhood grocery store, that are gluten-free. And I never knew some of these things were available gluten-free. So this was actually a really great thing for me to do. So anyway, 10 compelling reasons to go gluten-free. The first is a substance that's in wheat called gliadin. And this blew me away when I read about gliadin. Many of you are probably familiar with the term opiates or opioid drugs. Well, I did not realize that gluten has an opiate byproduct to it. And it causes your brain to respond very similarly to that of an opioid drug, such as Vicodin. And it causes a lot of addiction. So when I tell you guys to go on a yeast-free diet or a gluten-free diet, and I say sincerely that you're not going to like me very much for a few days, and then you're going to love me because you're going to feel so much better, I sincerely mean that. And it's because you are addicted to wheat. A lot of you are addicted to sugar, but it is not nearly the addiction that the addiction to wheat is, because it's very similar to a drug. And you sometimes go through withdrawals. So what that does is it causes problems in our brain. It causes that foggy brain syndrome. That's why a lot of people suffer from anxiety and depression. And yes, lifestyle, life circumstances may be contributing. Neurochemistries in the brain are probably off, but why are they off? If you're my patient, you know that I'm not just going to tell you that you have a disorder and not try to find the reason for that disorder. So there has to be something causing those neurotransmitters in the brain to be off, like serotonin and dopamine. So that something could be a wheat sensitivity or a gluten sensitivity. And I would encourage you to try going off gluten. And when I tell you to do that, you really need to be off of gluten for an entire month before some of you may see the benefits from that. Children with ADHD, bipolar illness, the paranoia that comes along with schizophrenics, all of that can be associated to some degree with wheat exposure. When intact, gliadin initiates the process of autoimmunity. And I want you to fully understand that. There's a book, a great book by an author that I've heard lecture several times. It's called The Gluten Connection. Unfortunately, this author is not alive anymore. She died of very advanced metastatic breast cancer several years ago. But she wrote this wonderful book which showed that over the course of the last, say, 15, 20 years, we've seen a 40% increase in autoimmune illnesses. And we very much believe that that is linked to our wheat supply and how not only wheat, but the other products that form gluten because of the gliadin antibodies present. And our bodies are just not adept at handling it. It's a foreign entity. So when a foreign entity enters our body, we build up our attack system and we start to fight it. And that's why sometimes our body attacks itself. It's because the whole system is kind of screwed up because of things that we're sensitive to. We have learned over the past few years that diabetes is an autoimmune illness. amazing stories of people being cured essentially of diabetes by going gluten-free. So if you suffer from diabetes, and particularly type 2, you may very well want to become gluten-free, and just watch what your hemoglobin A1C does, watch what your blood sugar does, and at some point you may need to come off of medication because those are going to go so low. I'm combining a lot of the reasons, but the second hormone that I want you to be aware of, our component of wheat, is something called amylopectin A. And when we talk about the wheat belly that we see, and it's sort of like if you were to think of a beer belly with a lot of people, amylopectin A is a substance that raises our blood sugar. It raises triglycerides in our body. And ounce for ounce, this substance has more glucose action than pure table sugar does. So if I were to look at, let's say, a slice of whole grain bread, and I were to look at pure sugar, one would think that the whole grain bread would be a better choice. But do you know it's about 15 points higher on a glycemic index scale than sugar is? And a lot of patients, when they come to me, are interested in weight loss. Well, one of the issues is they're not willing to give up things to make that weight loss happen, and they become insulin resistant. The only thing that causes you to be overweight is the body's response to glucose. And when insulin is released into the body, it causes the body to store fat. And when you have sensitivities to wheat, most of the time that fat is midsection, and it causes you to have that notorious wheat belly. So if you want to get rid of your midsection, your tire, I recommend that you try going gluten-free. And you may be very surprised that over time that completely disappears. And I hear that from patients over and over again. I have patients that have lost 50, 75 pounds simply going gluten-free. And going gluten-free is not designed to cause you to only lose weight. That sometimes is a byproduct, and it usually is a byproduct. It's designed to reduce the number one thing that kills us, which I bet you can guess that's inflammation. At the root cause of every disease process in the body is inflammation, and that's at the cellular level. So wheat, gluten-containing products cause us to have inflammation. Amylopectin A, nasty little product. It becomes a bowel toxin, actually. It can cause micro fissures in the gut and cause the villi to be damaged, sometimes permanently. Phytates, these are chemicals that block absorption of things like minerals and other things like iron, zinc, magnesium. So people, when you've had a long time association with a heavily carb-based diet, especially those with gluten products, you probably have a leaky gut. Numerous allergens are reasons to go gluten-free. And let's see, endocrine disruptors. How many of you guys have polycystic ovarian syndrome? A bunch, because I know, because I diagnose it and treat it. So those with hormone problems, and it's not only women, but men with low testosterone, a lot of times that is not due to your age, but it's due to what you're eating and those inflammatory foods. Those women, again, with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, that is an endocrine disorder. And it's, yes, it involves the female gynecology system, but it's mainly your endocrines, your hormones that are affected. And any kind of hormone disruptors, such as wheat, such as pesticides, will alter the way that your body breaks down those hormones. I thought this was kind of funny. One of the biggest slaps in the face to the big food industry and those executives are our local farmers markets. So one of the healthiest things you can do, and one of the best things for your local economy, is to visit your local farmers market often, because those foods are usually the ones that are the safest. One of the easiest ways to look at going gluten-free are look at things with one ingredient. Avoid the midsections of the grocery store unless you have a lot of willpower, because that's where most of the gluten-containing products are going to be. It's in the midsection of the grocery store. So when I was going through Lowe's Foods, I want to show you a few of the things that I found. And Snyder's now has a gluten-free pretzel, and I tried them. They are really wonderful. I couldn't tell a bit of difference between these gluten-free. They're egg-free, casein-free, and dairy-free as well, but these are pretzel sticks. Did you know that Tostitos, the old-fashioned Tostitos, are made of corn? These are completely gluten-free because corn is gluten-free. Ruffles, potatoes, any kind of potatoes are gluten-free. That means French fries, potato chips. The thing you have to watch for, though, is what were your potatoes cooked in. And that is mainly important when you go to fast food restaurants and get French fries. But French fries, for the most part, are gluten-free. But the problem is, if you're celiac and you're highly sensitive, sometimes those are cooked. Other grains have been cooked in there that may contain gluten. If you're the average person who is trying to go gluten-free for lifestyle changes, it's fine to eat the French fries from McDonald's, as much as I hate to say that word. These are by far my favorite crackers. They're called Bands, and these are the cheese variety. These taste just like Cheez-Its, and I'm going to check my rolls real quick. And they're not quite ready yet. But these taste just like Cheez-Its, and I found them at Lowe's Foods. So a friend of mine, my hairdresser, hooked me up with these and taught me about these. They also come in lots of everything, which has like different spices and stuff, and they're all gluten-free. Did you know that Campbell's tomato soup, one would think, would be just made of tomatoes, but it's not. It has gluten in it because of the thickeners that they use to thicken the tomato soup. I found a creamy organic tomato soup that I tasted. So most of these things that you're going to see today, I have tasted since I bought them. And this is a really good tomato soup. So good choice. It's called Pacific Organic Creamy Tomato Soup. As always, salsa to go with your Tostitos. Salsa is always a good choice because it's gluten-free. Here's a Progresso New England clam chowder, again gluten-free. The thing I love about Lowe's Foods, and this is not a commercial for Lowe's Foods, but they label their gluten-free things in a little orange label, so it's very easy to determine if something is gluten-free or not. Now, not everything gluten-free is going to be labeled because it's assumed that you know that it's gluten-free, like meats and those kinds of things. But if you're at question, it'll say on the label gluten-free. Okay, breads, which is a huge factor in going gluten-free. And I wish I had an answer that's going to tell you, oh, I found the most wonderful gluten-free bread. Quite honestly, I've never found a wonderful gluten-free bread that I love, but I just do it and deal with it, and it's okay. I don't like making sandwiches so much with gluten-free bread. I like gluten-free wraps to make sandwiches with. The Udi's are good old standby. You find it in the frozen food section. This one is a whole grain. It's wheat, dairy, soy, and nut-free. The problem you're going to find when you're going gluten-free is that like this little loaf of bread is about $5. And so it's going to be about twice as expensive as your normal breads on the shelf. But you can't put a price on your health. And if you shop at places like Costco, they have a huge loaf of Udi's. And it's actually really good. That's the kind at Costco that has quinoa in it, and I love it. Prego pizza sauce. So a lot of the things I'm going to show you, I'm not saying they're necessarily that healthy for you, but for that average mom out there who is feeding a family, And just for the normal person, it's easy to go gluten-free because of all the things that are on the shelves. I love any kind of noodles, and I love Thai food. So this Taste of Thai pan-fried noodles, gluten-free, which I was so stoked about, but I haven't tried these yet. So I'm anxious to try those this week. Craisins, I put those in my salads all the time. I love the taste of them. Rice is always gluten-free unless it's blended with something. So that's the problem. If you find things that are one ingredients like rice, you know, for the most part, that's going to be gluten-free. And I was super excited about this. When I go to the movies, and those of you who follow me on Facebook know that I go to the movies all the time, my favorite snack is duds. And I found out Milk Duds are gluten-free. So I am super excited about that because there's nothing better than sitting in a suspenseful movie, especially a scary one, and eating Milk Duds and popcorn. Popcorn's also gluten-free. So, and a study has been done of movie theater popcorn, and really not one instance of gluten has been found in movie theater popcorn. So, hot tamales, love them. Gluten-free, again, something for you to get as a snack. So I'm going to reach over here and show you some various pastas that are gluten-free. And this one is by Sam Mills. It's made of corn. This one is by Earthly Choice. It's imported from Italy, and it's made of quinoa. I've had both of these. Both are really good. You really want to put whatever sauce you want on these. I can't really tell the difference too much between this and regular wheat-based noodles. The difference is in cooking them. Sometimes it takes longer to cook them, and it's harder to get that al dente texture on them. So grits, always gluten-free. Mashed potatoes, the quick kind, the easy kind. Of course, it would be better for your family if you were to grow everything, make everything from scratch. But I'm talking about the real world here, and busy working folks, and you know, especially busy moms. This flour I just found. It may have been out for a while, but I have not seen it. So, but this is by Pillsbury. It was just on the shelf in the bakery section. And this is a blend of rice flour, potato starch, pea fiber, tapioca, and xanthan gum. And I haven't tried baking anything with it yet. And just as a quick note, when you're cooking gluten-free and you're doing baking, you can't go 1 for 1. So if it calls for 1 cup of regular flour, you can't really substitute that with 1 cup of a gluten-free flour. I would search recipes and find out that substitution just on Google. You can Google search anything. It really kind of goes by weight. So the weight of 1 cup of all-purpose flour and the weight of 1 cup or whatever of the gluten-free flour. So I made for us today, and again, you know, these aren't the homemade desserts where you have to blend your flours. This is, again, just talking to the average population. So I found Betty Crocker gluten-free cupcakes and brownies, and I wanted to see what they tasted like because I've had gluten-free cakes, I've had gluten-free brownies before. I never liked them, so I wanted to see if I made these myself at home and really watched them, you know, would I like them? So I found that they are really good. I see not a lot of difference. The brownies taste a little more dark chocolate than a milk chocolatey brownie. And I found that I had to take them out before I thought that they were fully done. Because if you wait until they're completely done, they're going to just be too dry. I also added a little extra oil in the beginning to make them more moist. And then the cupcakes, same way. Gluten-free things don't rise the way that other things do. And so you have to basically fill your cupcake papers with your batter in order to get the cupcake. that you need. So I basically filled my cupcakes almost to the top of the paper and baked them. And again, eat quick and easy. Betty Crocker, quick and creamy frosting, the rich and creamy kind, gluten-free. So I covered the cupcakes in chocolate and the brownies in cream cheese. So may not be the healthiest thing in the world, but it's gluten-free. Yogurt, again, you have to look at, again, at Lowe's, it's easy because they have the orange signs. This has more than one ingredient, obviously. So you want to kind of scan through it and just make sure that you don't see any sort of wheat as a byproduct. If it contains, well, for instance, beer is not gluten-free unless you get a gluten-free beer, but you know the things to look for on that. Peanut butter is gluten-free for the most part. Again, search a little bit. I know this is my favorite kind. It's Jif with honey and it's crunchy. So this is gluten-free and a great little snack, especially just to put on those gluten-free crackers. This is a gluten-free corn flake. And this is a great substitution for battering chicken or fish if you want to fry it, or even oven bake it. But these are gluten-free corn flakes, and they're sweetened with fruit juice. Hidden Valley Ranch, gluten-free. So most of your dressings, like this Olive Garden Italian dressing, is going to be gluten-free. You just, again, have to do your homework and be prepared. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, and we're not finished talking about this subject yet, but I need to check on these rolls, which I believe are ready. They are. They're just little cheese puffs, and they are just like bread, but they contain cheese in them. So they taste kind of like the cheese straws. And I'm going to get a plate, and we are going to plate our food. So what I've got here, and I'm going to add a little bit of, let's see, a little bit of milk to it because it got a little thick as we were talking. But I've got grits that were cooked with butter and some sea salt and some fresh heavy cream and goat cheese. So we've got goat cheese as one of the added ingredients. You can substitute cheddar if you'd like. Most cheeses are going to be gluten-free unless it's a processed cheese product. So I'm going to plate this. Then we have our shrimp, which is really beautiful. Mandy did a great job, and I'll show you what that looks like. It is cooked with Cajun seasoning, some garlic, some sliced red peppers. I don't think that she's added the wine yet, so I'm going to add a little bit of white wine to it, and that is basically going to deglaze the pan and get all those crispy little bits that are on the bottom. Stir it around, and we are going to have shrimp and grits. All right, so see, those are small, so we're going to put a couple on the plate. This is our finished product, and if I can hold this up to the light, but we've
Please stand by to understand.
Hey guys, I don't know what happened. My internet is, hey guys, I don't know what happened. My internet is still on, but hopefully some of you guys have hung in there. No idea. These webinars are, especially when you do them away from the office, are sometimes tough to get it to do the right things, especially when you are a little challenged like I am technologically. So, but I think the last thing I showed you guys was the meal and the gluten-free meal that we prepared. And then I'm not so sure you got to see the desserts, which were the cupcakes and the brownies that are all gluten-free. I showed you the inside of a brownie, which is very, very moist. And icing is the whole deal with cupcakes anyway. So it's basically in the icing. I used to swipe all the icing when I was a little girl. But they're very moist. And I had some taste testing going on in my kitchen last night, and people loved them. They couldn't really tell the difference between these and another cupcake. If I were to say anything, they may be a little drier than regular foods. So let's get back to the journey of being gluten-free. I want to give you some tips on easy ways to start a gluten-free diet. And first thing is I want you to become very familiar with restaurants that are local that offer gluten-free choices. And I have a list of those that are here in Greensboro, at least. And some of these actually have a separate menu that is gluten-free. And I know Elizabeth's Pizza, which is one of our favorites, PF Chang's, Ruby Tuesdays, Outback, TGI Fridays, Bonefish Grill, Boston Market, Carrabba's, Chili's, Mellow Mushroom. Ordering pizza from Domino's, you can now get a gluten-free pizza, which is way cool because kids love pizza and our bodies don't love gluten. So those are easy ways. If you're going to eat fast food, which is a little more challenging, I will tell you at Chick-fil-A, the grilled chicken nuggets and salads are gluten-free. Not a lot of options. They're basically McDonald's, just don't even think about it. And at, let's see, and I'm sorry, hello. This is what happens when you have a house full of kids and dogs. But let's see, Wendy's, great place to go gluten-free because Wendy's has chili, and their chili is gluten-free. Their baked potatoes are gluten-free. Their salads are gluten-free. So that's an awesome place to stop by Wendy's if you are in a hurry. Let's see here. Go on a gluten sweep of your kitchen as the second tip on going gluten-free. Go through all of your cabinets. Go ahead. It's better for your families if you're gluten-free anyway. So just get rid of everything that contains gluten. Don't make it a temptation. But do restock your kitchen with gluten-free options. The worst thing to do is to be hungry and then all of a sudden not have anything that's safe for you to eat. And your brain is then going to get tricky and say, well, you're hungry, you might as well have that cookie. Well, if that cookie's not there, you're going to reach for other choices. This is a benefit to the cook and being able to drink the wine when you're cooking with it. Think about your meals and how you'll plan them. Don't wait till the last minute. That's where you're going to get in trouble. Be prepared, quite honestly, to spend more time in the kitchen. And that's just because it's harder to find quick, easy, already pre-prepared meals. Like you can't go and buy a Stouffer's lasagna and stick it in the oven. You're going to need to prepare and think about what you want to make. But I promise you, in the end, it's going to be so worth it. Stay really hydrated. When you change your diet to something that's a lot healthier and you're eliminating the toxins that are in your diet, one of the things is you're going to go through a detox process, and that's part of that feeling bad for a few days. You're going to be eliminating toxins, so drinking lots and lots of water is going to help flush those through the kidneys. And taking my favorite detox bath, which is a hot bath with a couple of cups of Epsom salts and a half a box of baking soda. That's a wonderful detox bath to be able to do. Taking some of these following supplements is a really good thing when you're going gluten-free. Probiotics with about 50 billion colony-forming units, and that's a lot. But if you've been gluten-free, you have created, oh, my kitty came to visit, and it's a Jinxie. You created a scenario where you have that leaky gut, and you're going to want to heal that gut, and part of that healing process is going to be from the probiotics. Vitamin D3, one of the best things we can take for our immune system. Omega-3 fatty acids, such as fish oils. Get a good one, a good quality. You don't want one loaded with mercury and heavy metals. Nordic Naturals. We've got Metagenics. That's really, really good. And I've got cat hair flying all on my face now. Iodine, great supplement to take. It enhances your thyroid production. Magnesium. Magnesium is a really good thing. So those are some of the most important nutrients to take anyway. Again, eat mainly single food ingredients, such as when you're compiling your salad, you have to buy every ingredient separately. It's not a prepackaged salad, and that way you know it's going to be safe. Consider social situations. When you go to eat at someone's house, think ahead of time. If it's a dinner, if it's a cocktail party, you're probably going to have some choices. And that's going to be a little bit more healthy because you're going to have, vegetables, you're going to have fruits, meats that are probably sliced. If you go to a dinner party, however, that's going to be a little more challenging. I would let your host know ahead of time that you're gluten-free, because one of the things you're going to find if you go gluten-free and all of a sudden you've got, all this energy and you're feeling great and you've got this essential toxin out of your body, if you all of a sudden expose your body to a lot of gluten again, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, and you are going to have an overreaction to the gluten, and you're not going to like that very much. So it teaches you to stay gluten-free, actually. One of the big things, snacking, make sure you have handy snacks, and whenever several, the pretzels, the peanut butter, the popcorn, they make gluten-free, already prepackaged cookies. What you're going to find, they're about twice as expensive as regular cookies. Learn to make your own. That's one easy suggestion. And I've got, let's see here.